welcome again to Horizons, Autumn Horizons. We look forward to presenting to you again today. Um, as you know, I am Issa White, the Program Director of Austin Urban Technology Movement, and my job here is to share different professionals with you and for them to share their experience and share the knowledge that they have accumulated to help you in your in forwarding your career in tech. As you know, there is a huge problem in the lack of diversity in tech. And so our goal is to, like I said, spread the knowledge, spread the mentorship opportunities, spread the job opportunities for you to bridge this gap in the different tech, in the tech field so that it can reflect more of us in the population of those jobs. As you see in the US in 2017, the Black and Latino population represented 13 and 18% respectively, and that does not reflect in terms of the population of those who are members of those tech companies. So without further ado, I'd like to introduce your speaker, Duane Bush.
Thank you. Thank you. Hello, everyone. My name is Duane Bush. Um, wow, where to start? So just some background about me. I'm the CEO for Bush Agility. I've been working in IT for many, many years. And with that said, I started off my career not in IT, but I transitioned to IT several years later. So let me first begin by a brief intro about myself. I'm originally from Detroit, Michigan, but I am now indeed a proud Texan. After graduating from high school in
Sorry,
Detroit, I,
sorry, Duane.
oh, sure, you're fine.
My mouse is
Uh,
really sensitive today.
oh, you're fine. You're fine. After graduating from high school, I attended the University of Michigan, Ann Arbor, for undergrad. Spent 4 years there. I'm not quite sure if anyone here has heard of U of M, the University of Michigan. Um, if not, it's a great school. Definitely consider applying there going forward. I spent 4 years there, and after um, undergrad, I then transitioned to graduate school, whereby I attended Case Western Reserve University in Cleveland, Ohio, studying my master's in business administration. After grad school, I moved back to Michigan to be with family, my mom and dad, what have you. And I worked in Detroit for several years. My first job, my first real job, if you will, was working for a small nonprofit within downtown Detroit, whereby that nonprofit basically assisted in providing social services to people. Now, along those same lines, after working for that nonprofit, I eventually transitioned into IT, um, whereby I then thereafter started working for several companies. Let me first touch on at a very high level in terms of what I do. So once more, I basically own my own company called Bush Agility. And along those same lines, agility touches on how companies do software development. So along those same lines, if you are really intrigued, really interested in software development, number one, and or project management, this meeting, this conversation is definitely for you. Agility touches on how software development is done. Um, Software development can be done in one method, as we see here, whereby the software is delivered at the very end. So essentially, within my role, I work with software developers very frequently. Software developers meaning coders. They essentially write the overall code. I also work with project managers. Project managers along the same lines, whereby those people work hand in hand with overall software developers. They lead and oversee the overall teams. And moreover, that software has to be tested. Now, as we're doing software development, there are different ways of delivering that functionality. One method, one avenue is using something called traditional project management, or that method is oftentimes called waterfall delivery. And that waterfall delivery method is implied here in this slide here in the second row, whereby in waterfall delivery, as we're creating the software, as we're delivering that software, we're using a big bang approach, whereby you thereafter have a big bang release, whereby that functionality is being delivered, is being offered to our customer all at once. So that's one option. The second option which is what my company stresses, what my team stresses, is agile delivery, whereby we assist clients, we assist teams deliver functionality, but really as we're delivering that functionality, as we're delivering that overall functionality, we're using a new method called agile. And as that functionality is being delivered, we're doing so in cycles, we're doing so in iterations. Moreover, and even more importantly, we're accounting for feedback. Now, to stress that point even further, as we go to the next slide, there's a good illustration, a very basic model here, whereby it really emphasizes those points that I just made. And I created this slide to really ensure that we have a good understanding of agile. And along those same lines, I use the analogy of cooking. So I myself, I come from I basically hail from a family that does a lot of cooking. My mother loves to cook. We love soul food, if you will. That is in our nature. And along those same lines, there are different ways of cooking, and using cooking as an analogy, we see those two different models here. And the very top row, we see waterfall, or really better stated, traditional project management, whereby you're delivering the functionality, you're offering the overall code at the very end. Now, one trade back, which is implied here in this image, in this picture, is that if that is indeed done, there is less opportunity for feedback, less opportunity to align to the needs of the market, to align to the needs of our customers as we create functionality to really serve those customers going forward. So that's one model, applying waterfall. The second model, which is what my team teaches, what we advocate with our clients, is agile, whereby as we're delivering functionality, another option is that we are doing so in iterations or cycles. And moreover, we're garnering feedback. So here in this slide, we see after every delivery, after every cycle, we're accounting for that overall feedback, whereby that insight is very pivotal, is very essential to really ensure that we are indeed on the correct path going forward. And moreover, as we do that, we do indeed ensure that the functionality that we are creating is the best functionality possible to serve our customers going forward, as we see here. This slide here is a good illustration of agile, and really what agile implies, and how agile is somewhat distinct from that of waterfall, which is really traditional project management. And this next slide here, it really touches on essentially who is indeed using agile, which companies are using this method of software delivery, this method of project management. And with that said, a lot of companies, a lot of Fortune 500 companies, as we see here, are indeed using and leveraging agile. HP, Hewlett-Packard, Lego, Amazon, Google. And moreover, that market is steadily growing. It is steadily increasing, because what many clients have realized is that there are significant improvements and significant efficiencies by leveraging that overall delivery model going forward. Now, along those same lines, the next slide here touches on essentially my overall background, essentially what are my overall roots. Now,
We actually have one trivia question. Sorry, Duane.
Sure.
We have our first trivia question before we get into your background. So to make sure we're with the information we just covered, if you could go to menti.com or take a picture of the QR code, use the voting number at the bottom, 1745316. Is true or false? Agile is a single-step approach to IT software development delivery that builds software incrementally from the start, responding to feedback throughout delivery.
And this should be a pretty easy question to answer in light of what we just touched upon, if you will. So.
All right, so I'm gonna go ahead.
So students, you can use that QR code on the screen, or go to www.menti.com and enter the code in there.
What's the name? www?
Menti.com. I'll put it in the chat too.
www.
Yeah, so if you go there and then enter the 1745316 code, you'll be able to get to the quiz here.
Oh, they show me all the computer systems.
Sorry, what was the question?
Oh, they show me all the computer system. Like they need the email address, first name, last name.
On the menti.com?
Yeah.
Yeah, you can just put in your first and last name, and then it'll send you to the quiz.
Okay.
Does anyone else need help getting onto Menti? or you can post your answer to this trivia question in the chat.
Hey,
I'm gonna do that because I can't get on Menti for some reason.
Okay,
Okay.
can you post in the chat then, Corey or Michael?
Yeah, go ahead and
How do
post
we-
in the chat. That'll be fine.
How do we do it, Julie?
Just
If
go
you
ahead and
go to
post your
the-
answer in the chat.
Yeah, chat is fine if the
We'll just
Menti
use the
is
chat.
So you're answering, is it true or false? Agile is a single-step approach to IT software development delivery that builds software incrementally from the start, responding to feedback throughout delivery.
Change that too. All right.
Yes.
All right, good. So we got some answers here. Thank you, Marquita, for using the Menti. We decided to use the chat on this one. We can use Menti on the next one, but the QR code is going to be the same. Voting code is going to be the same.
I don't know, it's not working like, what's the
Alright.
question?
Go ahead and just use the chat for these then, BB Parka. But the answer to this was false.
Mhm.
Exactly.
Agile is an iterative approach, not a single step approach.
Okay.
Okay, all right.
Okay, great. So let's touch on my overall career journey. So as I mentioned earlier, I was born and raised in Detroit. I went to the University of Michigan, attended Case Western as well. And my first full-time job was working as an account manager for a nonprofit. And that touches on a very neat point. And that point is one that we'll be reiterating in this presentation. And that point is, even though you may not start off in IT, that does not mean that you cannot transition to IT. So really, in your career within IT, you will easily meet many, many people that do not have a IT background. My bachelor's degree was in political science, but once more, even though I did not start off in IT, I was able to transition into IT going forward. In this next slide here, the next one after this one here, it really touches on how I made that transition, how I was able to segue. So essentially, I worked in Detroit for several years, and my segue, my transition into IT was really random, as this slide implies. My first job, my first IT job, was working for IBM. And what's ironic is that when I started for IBM, I was hired on in a accounting finance role. My official title was financial analyst. And what transpired, what happened was that I did such a good job working as a financial analyst in management. The executives there advised me to consider other opportunities in the company. And once more, IBM was one of the biggest largest IT companies in the world. So there were a slew of opportunities. And with that said, I was able to make that transition. Now, that also touches on the another important point that we'll be touching on and highlighting, and that is being open to other possibilities in your career and not being totally fixed on one, because sometimes things arise or opportunities arise, as implied here, that can allow you to make that transition. And I worked for IBM for many, many years. And with the overall knowledge that I obtained there, I realized the possibilities within IT. While I was working within IBM, I saw different aspects of IT. I saw cybersecurity, I saw software development, I saw project management, I saw data storage. And when I saw these possibilities, I was intrigued. Moreover, I was inspired. I saw the inherent possibilities in this sector, and I wanted to explore it. And along those same lines, another avenue that really allowed me to take part in that exploration were really mentors and other executives that I was working hand in hand with, that were mentoring me and coaching me in terms of my IT career. The question, I think there's a question in the chat room that touches on, why did I choose this job? I was originally hired for IBM as a financial analyst, so it was still within what I had done in the past. My first job was working as an accounting finance manager for a nonprofit, so it was a good transition, if you will, from one finance role to another financial role. And I started working for IBM in that capacity. But once more, I was able to realize the other possibilities that were indeed inherent within IT. Now,
I mean, like you have like one job.
yeah, so really after working for IBM,
Yeah.
I transitioned to other companies. So really in my career, I've worked for many companies, and really many IT professionals can really attest to that.
And which one do you like? Your favorite?
Which, well, my current one, of course. So my current role is the best one, working for Bush Agility. But really, along those same lines, I worked for many companies last 15 to 20 years. I worked for Johnson & Johnson, Caterpillar, AIG, Deloitte, and every company, every client, if you will, offers opportunities for you to grow and realize the possibilities within IT, and to also grow your overall career going forward. Um, Another point that I really want to touch on and really highlight is the importance of finding, if you can, role models and mentors, gravitating towards people who are doing something that you yourself want to do perhaps sometime soon. Because if you work with those individuals, they can mentor you, they can coach you to really ensure that you are indeed on the correct path going forward. And I was very fortunate enough when I worked for IBM to have those mentors, to have those role models to really coach me along those same lines. So really, as the slide implies, after working for many companies for many years, after gaining a certain level of expertise, I eventually transitioned to my own company, started my own company several years ago, whereby, as I touched on earlier, Bush Agility, we basically assist various clients in their agile software delivery going forward, if you will. Now, in this next slide here, um, we have another quick question. And as the moderators have noted, feel free to use the chat room. So in this poll question here, we're being asked, what are other areas of IT that you are perhaps interested and intrigued in? And really for this poll question, there's no right or wrong answer, because keep in mind, we're all here to learn. We're all here to explore the possibilities inherent in IT. So once more, one possibility is project management. Another possibility is software development or coding, if you will, cybersecurity, working in system data storage, what have you. And there are also other opportunities as well. And moreover, you can also be undecided. So feel free to type in the chat room very briefly which areas of IT you're basically exploring here and now, if you will. And there's another question that was asked in the chat room earlier, and that question is, how did I get my job at IBM? Good question. So I was able to transition into that job. It was totally random. I was merely looking for other opportunities in finance, and I was on Career Builder. I believe they're still around, that form for job searching. But I was on there, and I saw a job, a posting for IBM, and I applied for that role. And I was hired. There were several rounds of overall interviews. And what's really unique about my first role within IBM was that I was somewhat hesitant to take it on. And one of the biggest reasons why I was hesitant was because my first initial role working for IBM was in Iowa. So really, that also touches on the idea that sometimes you have to step out on faith to really explore possibilities. So with that said, I lived several years in Iowa, a very small town in Iowa called Dubuque, a great small town. And there, those several years I was in Iowa, I was able to hone my IT skills. And that time there defined me for a lifetime, if you will. So I see all the different comments from this overall question in terms of which areas of IT were interested in. I see cybersecurity here from Daniel. He's also intrigued by big data as well. Any more comments to this question?
Are some students using the Menti, or if not, post in the chat which area of IT you're interested in, either what's on the slide here or another area. You can also say you're undecided.
And once more, there's no right or wrong answer.
Mm-hmm. Untitled. Awesome.
I
Got
see.
the responses coming in.
I see graphic design for Michael. I see Corey. He's intrigued by software development, cybersecurity, system support. Okay, great. Marquita.
I like all of them, but I like the last one.
You're perfect.
Yeah. Oh, sorry.
Okay, I think that's great feedback. So let's touch on why I am indeed here as a speaker. So once more, the most important reason why I sit here in front of you today is a very important area, and that is really compelling, really ensuring that minority disadvantaged professionals give back, and moreover, that we function as role models for the next generation, for you all. Now, in this slide here, which is very poignant, we have a picture in the upper right-hand corner of this slide. And in this picture, we see people standing on top of one another, or better stated, we see people standing on the shoulders of others. Now, along those same lines, that touches on really why we're here. We are indeed here as individuals because our parents, our loved ones worked very hard indeed to get us here. So we stand on the shoulders of many strong, righteous people to stand where we are today. And moreover, it's incumbent upon us to give back as soon as we can to the next generation going forward, which is implied here in this slide. It's also important that that there is good representation from minority disadvantaged professionals in IT. Once you start working in IT, what's very unfortunate is that oftentimes when you go to meetings, you may be the only person of a darker complexion, which is very, very unfortunate. Moreover, you may also be the only female in the room, which is also very unfortunate. So we are indeed here to ensure that all people from all backgrounds are indeed represented going forward, which is very, very important. Another reason why I'm here is that, as I alluded to earlier, even though you may not start off in IT, you always have the opportunity, the option, the ability to transition into IT. And lastly, and most importantly, to also imply that as you begin your IT career, you may start off as a individual contributor, or better stated, as a worker. But with that said, you may gain the inclination, the overall fortitude, and then transition into ownership going forward, which is very, very important. There's some questions in the chat room. One question is professionals. So professionals really just implies any minority disadvantaged IT professional, any person that works in IT should be giving back, if you will, going forward. So in this slide here, we see the different reasons why I am indeed here. In this next slide here, we also see what it's currently like, what I currently like, if you will, about my current role. And there's a lot of different things that I love about my current role. One of the most important ones is that it really allows me to work with executives, with different clients, if you will, and to really educate them in terms of the possibilities and the best practices for software delivery. Oftentimes, when you're working with different executives, they may be doing software delivery, but along those same lines, they may not be applying best practice. In my team, we would indeed go on site, offer training, offer insight, offer input to really allow those clients to transition and to better align to those best practices going forward. As I mentioned earlier, another key aspect that I love about my role is that it also allows me to work with executives, but even more importantly, with project managers, with software developers, with testers. So really, as we create the code as developers, this code, this functionality also has to be tested and validated before we release that code to production. And that's where the quality analysts, the testers, come in, if you will, for that overall role. So one neat aspect about my overall role is that I present to them the overall possibilities of agile software delivery going forward. Also, as I mentioned earlier, allow companies and clients to realize the other opportunities that exist for better efficiencies by allowing and really implementing agile best practices. And lastly, by being a executive, by being my own, by owning my own business, it also offers me greater latitude for a better work-life balance, which is very, very important as well. In this next slide, after this one here, we have another trivia. And in this trivia, using the chat room, feel free to type 3 companies that are indeed using Agile as of right now. And we saw a great slide showing some possible answers a few minutes ago. So really to make sure that we're all following along, feel free to type 3 companies that you are aware of using Agile within the overall chat room, if you will. And by and large, many Fortune 500 companies are transitioning to Agile. So Agile itself started in the 1990s. And before Agile, there was a traditional way of doing software development called Waterfall that was created and emerged in the 1970s. And during the 1990s, IT professionals put into place best practices, better ways of delivering software to customers, to clients going forward. And thus Agile was indeed created. So I see a few answers here. Daniel, he wrote Apple. They are indeed using Agile. IBM, of course, Microsoft, what have you. It looks like the answers are still coming in.
So that slide with the logos, does anyone remember which logos you saw on that previous slide? Procter & Gamble's one, Rakita? I remember seeing Lego on there. I was kind of surprised. I guess they have software they're running nowadays, not just the toys. So there it is.
Okay, great. Now, in this next slide here, what we're emphasizing, what we're stressing is what people should know, what they should be aware of that are really interested in this particular career. And once more, this my role, my job is a merger once more of software development and that of project management. And really, we see those important points that we should be aware of, that we should be cognizant of. One point that I stressed earlier is the importance of finding good mentors, the importance of finding good role models. More importantly, the importance of being a part of groups such as this one, the group that you're now in, whereby it will allow you to meet similar, likely-minded individuals, which is very, very important as you grow your overall career. Also, another point that's being applied here is the compelling need to be humble as you start your career, and being open and willing to learn from others. Now, that point was implied earlier. As I mentioned earlier, my first role was working for IBM. But as I noted earlier, that was not originally an IT role. That was originally a financial role, working as a financial analyst, but I was humble. I was indeed open to other possibilities. And those other possibilities did indeed open the doors to greater and better things going forward. So that's very, very important, having a sense of humility as you start and grow your career going forward. The next point that's being applied here is one that we stressed and really alluded to earlier, and that is even though that you may not originally start off where you want to be, by working hard, by staying focused, you can always transition to where you need to be. And that's something that we, everyone, should be mindful of, should be focused upon. We should all have goals. We should all have things that we're indeed striving towards, and we should be trying our best to work to work towards those dreams going forward. The next point that we see here is having a strong emphasis on maintaining soft skills. And once more, having good soft skills oftentimes determines the attitude, and your attitude determines your altitude. Now, soft skills really implies to your demeanor, to your personality, to others. Keep in mind, when you work in corporate America, you will be working with peers. It's important to have a good sociable, workable demeanor to learn from them, to excel. Keep in mind, oftentimes in corporate America, we work in groups, we work in teams. So having and garnering soft skills is very, very important to really grow your career, which is implied here. And lastly, as you start your career in IT, one point that I always stress when I'm having talks such as this one is the important to the very strong importance of continuously improving yourself. You should never sit on your laurels. You should never be complacent. You should always be seeking better and bigger things. And one avenue, one means of doing just that is by being very aggressive, pursuing IT certifications. So really along those same lines, one point, if you take just one point from this meeting that we're here today, and that one point is the importance to pursue IT certifications. In doing so, as the slide implies, as a means of growing your overall career, but even more importantly, as an opportunity, as an avenue of heightening your earning potential. Now, with that said, that touches on a very key point. Now, keep in mind, we're all minorities, we're all disadvantaged groups here and now. And with that said, unfortunately, sometimes when you walk into a room, there are instinctive, predisposed assumptions that people have of you, unfortunately, even though you may be nicely dressed, ironically enough. And with that said, by having certifications, by having something that shows that you have a certain level of knowledge, it helps mitigate those myths, if you will, those stereotypes, if you will. And that's something that we should all be cognizant of if we're a minority, if we're a female, what have you, going forward. Now, along those same lines, that also touches on a very important point. And that point is education. Education. So to work in IT, as you begin your IT career, especially if you're a software developer, you will easily encounter people that may not have gone to college. That is not unusual. So once more, to work in IT, you do not need to instinctively go to college. When you look at Bill Gates, when you look at Mark Zuckerberg, these are billionaires. They did not go to college. Now, with that said, if you're a minority, if you're a disadvantaged person, having a degree, having a piece of paper does indeed allow you greater opportunity, does indeed allow you to get a seat at the table for an interview. So moreover, it's incumbent upon us to try our best to work towards that degree. But moreover, if that is not an option, which college is not an option for all people, pursuing IT certifications is another avenue. And in this next slide here, after this one here, we see those different certifications. So one question that's in the chat room is, which IT certifications do I recommend? So we see the answer indeed here in this slide. Moreover, we also see the income potential of particular certifications. And one point that I always stress is that every IT professional, as I mentioned earlier, should be continuously improving themselves. Moreover, every IT professional always advocate should at least try to obtain 1 to 2 of these top paying certifications. So when I worked for IBM many years ago, and an IBM executive sat me down and he coached me on the importance of IT certifications, the importance of how certain certifications can grow your career very quickly, how certain certifications can lead to greater income potential by and large over the course of time. And we see a good illustration indeed of those certifications here in this slide. Moreover, as we look at some of the salaries for these certifications, some of these salaries are honestly on the low end. They are indeed on the low end. If you ask certain IT professionals, they will easily attest that that salary is somewhat low. That's not the norm, but it is a good starting point to be aware of if you pursue certain certifications going forward. So once more, if college is not your route, which is totally fine, I strongly encourage the pursuit of IT certifications to get your foot in the door and to also ensure perhaps a certain earning potential over the course of time going forward. There was a question in the overall chat room whereby the question or the comment was college can also get you the overall correct networks, which is true. So once more, college should always be the first goal. But once more, if college is not an option, I always encourage students to encourage pursuing IT certifications. Moreover, if you're doing software development, also perhaps consider pursuing and really partaking in a boot camp, a coding boot camp. And there are many nationwide. In fact, there are many here in Austin, in downtown Austin, whereby you can attend a coding boot camp for 3 months or even 6 months, and then thereafter start working in IT. And as you work as a coder, there are certain starting salaries for most developers over the course of time. They're fairly good if you do your research on Google, if you will. So with that said, are there any questions so far? So great. So in this next slide here, being a good executive, just really highlighting, really emphasizing the possibilities of agile software delivery. And we see that being implied here in this slide, whereby in this slide, we also have a link for further contact. So if you want to explore what my company does, our website is listed here. Also, if you want to stay in contact with me, my email address is contact@bushagility.com. And someone from my team can easily forward that email to me, which is totally fine. So that's a fairly simple email to remember, contact@bushagility.com. So let me open up the form to any questions, if any questions perhaps exist. Any questions about IT in general, software development, agile, what have you, the steps or paths you are considering taking going forward in your overall career? Here's a question, and it's a question from Daniel. And Daniel's question is, what was your biggest challenge getting to where I am, and how did I overcome that challenge? That's a good question. Um, I think as a minority, as a disadvantaged person, there's many challenges we all face. Um, one of my biggest challenges initially was going to college. Ironically enough, I I did not have the financial means to go to college. So with that said, I come from very humble beginnings, just like many people. Bill Gates did not come from a well-off family. He worked his way up, just like all of us can indeed do. And when I was matriculating, preparing to go to college, I did not have the financial funds, the wherewithal to go. So during high school, my junior year and senior year, I worked very hard. I applied to many scholarships, citywide and also nationwide. And people were smiling down on me. I guess they saw the overall potential when I was able to get a full ride to college, to U of M, if you will, going forward. So that's indeed one challenge I faced. Another challenge was starting Bush Agility. As you work in IT, um, after a period of time of working, doing your overall job, especially for 5, 18 years, after a period of time, you get the epiphany that perhaps I should be doing this for myself as opposed for another entity, another group, if you will. And any business owner would tell you there are indeed hurdles to starting a business. It takes time, it takes capital. So that's indeed one challenge that I also had to overcome, but it is indeed worth it going forward, if you will. So. Any more questions? Another question here from Daniel. Another great question is, what does it mean to be successful? And what can we do as young adults to become successful? That's a good question. So my definition of success is really making my family happy. When my family is happy, I am indeed happy, if you will. And to your second question, what can we do as young adults to be successful? Now, that's a very loaded question because once more, the definition of success is very subjective. It varies from one person to the next. So really, for me, as I mentioned earlier, my own definition is ensuring that my family is really content, that they're happy. But really, another person's definition can be different, if you will, which is totally fine. So, but I will say this: if you work hard, if you're focused on your goals, by doing just that, it allows you to make gainful steps to achieving success going forward, if you will. The next question is from Marquetta. Her question is, what kept you motivated while doing all of this? Good question. And I will easily say family. My family is my best cheerleader. And my mother in particular, my brother and sister, even though others may doubt you, your family, if you're fortunate to have a very supportive family, they're there to lift you up, if you will, going forward. Also, being spiritual, having a religious foundation, if you will, if that's indeed one option as well. So, any more questions? So once more, if you have any questions, definitely feel free to reach out to me. My email address is contact@bushagility.com. So,
All right. If you can go ahead and put that in the chat
okay.
for me. But thank you guys. Thank you, Duane, for presenting today. It was really an insightful presentation. It's always good to hear from people who started off, the normal college route and end up starting their own companies. I think it's a really unique story. As you know, you guys, you can always tune into the app. I'm still using keywords. You can always use the app Autumn Learn, and also check out our webpage. There are some cohorts and boot camps that you can earn certifications from. Going through Autumn, we have relationships with some other companies. Like you said, getting a certification is a really valuable thing, and it doesn't cost nearly as much as either going to school route or take too much time away from your daily or work life. So check out our website, make a profile, and it'll send an email to me. We can have that conversation.